Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I have a message for you which is going to allow you to see what role you have naturally taken in your family life that could still be playing out for you now, that with some awareness will give you so much ability to actually make some changes and transformations by being able to see yourself in these roles. And I'm very excited about bringing this message to you guys today because you may or may not heard of these 4 key roles that every single human being will engage in, particularly one of them, as we grow up. And the purpose of these roles are actually to fulfill the needs of the system of our family that we grew up in. And basically, it's all unconscious. You know, you're not consciously trying to be in these roles. This is an automatic process. And basically, it meets the need of the family unit system to hide its dysfunction. All right. And let's just put it out there. Every single family has dysfunction, all right? And the reason is because families are made up of human beings and we've all got our dysfunctions, right? And we've all got, basically nobody's perfect. And so this is by no means trying to, attack well-intentioned human beings trying to create families and, and trying to do their absolute best, because I do believe that we are all trying to do the best with the tools that we have. But basically, this is a way of looking at and analyzing where you've come from, how you got here, and to make sure that who you are at this day and in this time in your history and in your life, you are consciously choosing to be there. And you're not getting caught up in past unhealthy and unconscious patterns that are limiting you and keeping you stuck and keeping you from reaching your potential and your fulfillment and your freedom and all that great stuff. So I would love if you want to share this message with any people that you feel could get value from up-leveling their self-awareness, seeing what roles they played in their own dysfunctional families, like we've all had and all come from, and we can't help that. I'd love it if you shared that with them as we dive into today's conversation, and make sure that you are definitely dropping me a comment. Let me know where in the world you are tuning in from, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, your perspectives, your experiences, your questions, anything that you'd love to contribute to the conversation today. I always am so grateful to get to connect with you guys and to co-create this space with you. So I'm so excited about diving into this one with you. So today's message is the roles that we played to hide our dysfunctional families. And basically the roles that I'm going to explain for you guys today are what's called as the hero, the scapegoat, the lost child, and the mascot. All right, so let's dive in, and let me first explain to you why it's important to understand this stuff. So I'm a big believer is anytime you're not feeling fully free in your life, fully fulfilled in your life, it's oftentimes because there's some sort of unconscious patterns and defenses and roles that we end up playing that we have muddled up with our true identity and core self. And that's why we feel like we're sabotaging ourselves. We can't move forward. We're creating bad situations. We're doing things that we know we don't want to do, all the rest of it. The dysfunction within stems from the dysfunctional ways that we operated as a child, and we haven't transcended that. And unfortunately, most of us haven't, because it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of self-reflection, and it takes a hell of a lot of courage to face your shadows and take ownership and responsibility for your own life, right? So the 4 different roles that I'm going to dive into and explain so that you can pick yourself, and I'd love for you to drop a comment and let me know which one of these roles you most resonate with, and you can see you've played this role, because every single one of us has at least one of these roles, right? In our relationships, and in particular in our family, our initial family unit, right? And basically what these roles do is they all serve a function of hiding the dysfunction in the family so that we can all cope. all right? Before we are consciously aware of what the problems are and we're working towards solving them and healing from them. Most of us aren't doing that, so we end up playing these roles, and it is a system that is unavoidable and unconscious and automatic. And if one of these roles is already at play in your family when you come into it, you tend to miss out on that role and you'll play the next role. So let's dive into it. So the very first of the roles that come into play to hide the dysfunction of our family is the role of the hero. So a lot of times the firstborn, and not always, but I'm just going to talk in generalizations here. A lot of times the firstborn child ends up being what we call the hero. Now, what is the hero? The hero is basically, got to be perfect all the time, got to be right all the time. They tend to be really high achievers, getting A grades, doing, all the extracurricular activities that they can do. And basically this is their strategy of hiding the dysfunction in the family is being perfect, right? Being the hero, saying, my family's great because look what I'm doing, I must come from a great family because I'm such a hero, right? And basically that is the first role, and they tend to get a high amount of praise and attention and affirmation for all of the success and the achievement that they're creating. Okay, but basically that's the role that they're playing. But remember, this is all to hide dysfunction. So it's not coming from a healthy place, right? It's coming from an unconscious place. And basically, what's truly going on under the surface for the hero is that they are terrified. They are so afraid of failure and letting down the family by not living up to the expectations to be perfect. And they can oftentimes also feel really over-controlled, like they don't get to make their own decisions in their life, right? They're leaving it up to their family. And so basically all of that fear of failure, fear of letting everybody down, fear of not living up to the expectations is the real driver of the behavior to overachieve and try and be perfect and always be right. And basically, again, it's all hiding, attempting to hide the dysfunction of the family unit. Again, we're all human, so we're always going to have dysfunction in our families, right? So I'm not trying to put, dysfunctional families and super amazing families. We're all got dysfunction, all right? And basically, that's the hero role, right? So you got that one? Are there any heroes in the house? Any of you can notice that you had to be the high achiever, try and be perfect, try and live to the expectations of your family, all those things. Can you see yourself in that one, or can you see another family member? Drop me a comment, let me know. It was me, it was my brother, it was my sister, whoever you can identify with in that role of the hero. And once that role is fulfilled, generally speaking, again, I've seen this happen in a different order, but in a general way of looking at it, when the next child comes in, the hero role has generally already been taken. And so the next role to try and hide the dysfunction of the family unit is what we call the scapegoat. Now, the scapegoat is like the opposite to the hero, right? And it's seen that this child is seen as the problem in the family, the black sheep, if you may, right? And basically they have a really hard time of fitting in to and relating to the other family members, and their behavior as the scapegoat is seen as never being good enough. And this child ends up being, generally speaking, generally pretty angry and impulsive, all right? That's the scapegoat, and that's how they play that role. And because they're the problem, they distract from the dysfunction of the family, right? That's their role. Remember, all of these roles are to hide the dysfunction of the family. So the scapegoat, it's kind of the one that gets pointed to. Oh, what a problem that child is. And how could a child be such a problem when it came from the family with such a hero in it, right? And basically what's going on underneath the surface for the scapegoat is that they might have this facade of, being impulsive and angry, right? But basically underneath, they are absolutely filled with shame and hurt and a sense of rejection. And they have a hard time getting motivated to succeed because they already feel like such a failure and a loser in their lives and in their family. And that's kind of the message that they get, right? And so basically, you can see this dysfunction play out quite a lot, not just as a child, but you can see these patterns. Until we identify the roles that we've played, we don't really have a huge hope of transcending them, right? So you need to bring conscious awareness. That's why I say, like, find yourself in what I'm articulating for you guys today in one of these key 4 roles, so that you can start to differentiate between who it is that you actually are as your core self and the roles that you've played for survival and to hide dysfunction. So basically, when we've got a scapegoat and a hero in a family, the scapegoat can also feel like they kind of become the sponge to absorb all the bad things that the hero is running away from, right? That the hero can't handle, all the negative things, right? And what you might actually find later on in life is that when we get into relationships, so you might see this play out for you as an adult, oftentimes, a hero might actually get married to a scapegoat, and that kind of gives the hero this, unspoken permission to kind of offload all of their fears of rejection and failure onto the scapegoat that becomes the sponge and almost like the punching bag, right? And that dynamic is obviously dysfunctional. And what happens for the scapegoat is, because the scapegoat has such a low opinion of itself, they actually feel better about themselves because the hero has chosen to be in relationship with them as a scapegoat. So there's a little more dysfunction for you, right? When we stay stuck and trapped in these roles and not identifying them and not disconnecting our true self from these particular dysfunctional roles. All right. So that's number 2. Number 3 is the lost child. All right. Now, the lost child is the individual or the child that comes into the family and is often kind of ignored or very quiet, or may kind of feel insignificant or invisible in their family unit. And they tend to have very low sense of self-esteem, identity, and self-worth. And, not much ends up being expected of these children, all right? Because this is the person who is often, not really pushed to try hard or to succeed. They're kind of more just not even noticed, right? They're more an invisible child in the dynamic. And what's actually happening inside the lost child is basically that they have all of these frozen feelings, and basically all of these feelings that they never received a sense of value as a human being. And so that's kind of how it ends up playing out. They end up feeling very alone, very misunderstood. And oftentimes, as an adult, the lost child tends to fill that void within with a lot of material items, even turning inwards to internal and isolated hobbies. Like a lot of lost children are, really into art and writing. And they can oftentimes also have learning disabilities because they didn't really get nurtured, and they didn't really get the guidance that would have been helpful for them as children. They were more insignificant or invisible in the family unit. And basically, a big part of the dysfunction with this role is that the lost child tends to keep their opinions to themselves and rarely feels needed or rarely feels like they contribute any real value to the family. And that can obviously lead to depression, even suicide a lot of times for the lost children. And, basically they end up feeling like more of a burden to the family, right? You've got the brother or sister hero who's just like gets all the praise and all the attention. They're so perfect and they're always achieving everything. Then you've got the scapegoat that's the real problem of the family, always creating problems, has bad behavior, all the rest of it. And now the lost child just feels invisible to, it's the the other children in the family because they've got, they draw more attention for however they're showing up. And then we get to the final of the 4 roles that you might find yourself in. And this particular one is called the mascot or the clown. And basically, this child comes in at a time where they're trying to distract from the dysfunction of the family, to kind of make everybody laugh, to make everybody feel happy, to distract you from, the dysfunction and the pain and the hurt and all the rest of it that's going on in the family. So basically, they end up being kind of more immature, kind of goofy and funny, and does anything for a laugh, and basically they might be the naughty kid at school, the class clown, right? And basically that can make them, operate in the schools, have trouble in the school system in that way. But what's really going on the inside of this, of the mascot or the clown of the family, is that they're continuously hiding that pain that's going on within the family unit and within themselves, with humor, and they oftentimes feel very inadequate. And they are seldom ever taken seriously by anybody in the family, right? Or respected. They're kind of looked down upon, kind of, like the court jester, right? Like just kind of, good for a laugh, but like not really taken seriously. And basically the family can oftentimes, promote this role, like, really reinforce this role as a way to avoid tough issues, and provide kind of a bit of comic relief in the family pain and dysfunction. And so obviously, if you're just always avoiding the dysfunction and laughing it off, obviously that pain is going to continue to build up and remain covered up and, and kind of avoided. And basically the mascot or the clown in the family becomes really quite burdened with all of that responsibility to make everybody happy, to, distract them from their pain and dysfunction. And they can oftentimes end up in a big state of depression. Also because they're very pressured, right, to kind of hide, cover up other people's pain, and making other people laugh and cheering them up and not ever working through the tough issues in the family. And they also tend to be more followers in life and allow others to kind of dictate and determine the course of their life as well. So wherever you found yourself, I hope you found yourself in one of these roles and had the courage to actually own that. I know sometimes, looking at dysfunction, looking back at our childhood, being able to, acknowledge that there was dysfunction, it can be pretty heavy stuff. I know for myself personally, I kind of just swept anything I could see as dysfunction under the rug, right? And it's taken me a lot of growth work to get to a place where I can acknowledge it and own it without being overcome by it, right? And a really great way of acknowledging and owning and seeing your role without being overcome and overwhelmed by it is to realize that every single human being comes from a dysfunctional family. We've all had that, right? And it's not to judge or condemn any of our parents or any of that stuff. It's like we're all human beings. We all have been wounded emotionally. We all project out our experience of life and our pain onto others, particularly when we're not healing, right? We don't have another way and we don't see ourselves and what we're doing in the world and how we're impacting others. And we can be very well intentioned, but we can still create dysfunctional families, right? And have impacts on those we love most in the opposite direction that we would ever consciously choose, all right? So understand that we all have dysfunction. We've all come from dysfunctional families. Some, are much more dysfunctional than others, but there's dysfunction everywhere, and these roles exist in every family unit. So there's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken, it's really great to face this stuff. And remember, when we look into the darkness, we bring the light and we give ourselves an opportunity to transcend it and become wiser. And what you will also find is that as you go on your growth journey, it can oftentimes be really challenging as you grow and you evolve and you recognize yourself in these roles. And if you're surrounded by maybe family who aren't interested in growth, or don't really want to go down this path, you might actually, as you grow and you relinquish the control of these roles or whatever your role has been, you might actually see family members play out the more of an extreme to try and pull you back into the system and play your role to hide the dysfunction. And just know that that too is only natural, and they're not consciously trying to do that. This is a part of the human experience, and the more consciously aware we can be of our own roles and how others are playing different roles and where that comes from and what purpose that is trying to serve, the more we don't have to be overcome with it and brought back into it, and the more we can become the leader in our own lives and sometimes often in the lives of others, to show others what is possible and what is waiting for you on the other side in terms of your freedom and your fulfillment. All right, so really hope that this message has resonated with you guys. I can't wait to jump in the comment section and see who's been able to join me today, and also see if you've dropped me any questions or comments or words of wisdom, and also identified yourself as one of these roles. When I first read this, I was actually and studied this, I was actually thinking of myself as more of the mascot, and I can relate to a whole lot of places there, but I also relate to the hero. So I won't go too much deeper into that right now because I want to check in with you guys, but it's a very interesting process of identifying yourself and seeing how different things happen in your family that can challenge you into fulfilling on the roles that aren't being fulfilled on, and you can have a little bit of a dynamic of crossover. So keep that in mind, but let me check in with you guys. And like I said, if this is of value, today's message, please do share it with anybody that you know could benefit from it, in any groups or personally, however you want to go about it. Share it with your family, and I'd love to hear from you guys about what you uncover and how you can bring awareness to the roles so that you don't have to be succumbing to them, and you can actually show up as your core true self and know when you're playing a role, and know you've got conscious choice to dismantle that in a really healthy way. All right, let me check in. I have got Ellis in the house and Jace. Hi there, old friend. Have been missing you live for a long. Oh, it's always good to see you, Jace. Great to have you back, my friend. Hope this is of value, today's message. And Ellis, hi, good morning. Really appreciate your timely, well, keeping the faith. Your happy, good training. Love it. Okay. Love having you here, Alice. I'm grateful that you're finding value in these messages, and always good to see you live. Thanks for showing up. And Alex is here as well, and Daryl is saying hi from the Great White North. I hope you're doing amazingly well. And also Bill's in the house, awesome. And Jerry, I was the black sheep, Jerry says. Yep. So the scapegoat. This can be, I even see myself as a little bit of a black sheep at times, right? But no, one of my brothers was actually the real scapegoat in my family, really clearly. And so, yeah, I really feel for you with that one. Now, when we identify our role, right, we have a pathway out. Now, I could go into that with you guys, but it could be here all day. This is a really deep dive. But if any of you are interested in seeing the pathways once you've identified your role, seeing what's the growth pathway out of this role, then you can definitely let me know, and I'd be happy to create another live for you guys on that topic. But thanks for sharing there, Jerry. And another black sheep in the house, we've got Amy. And she says, to me, scapegoat and black sheep are two different things. Okay. So in this terminology in psychology, around family and dysfunctional family psychology, the scapegoat is kind of the black sheep as well. But yeah, you can definitely look at them as two different things as well. And however that lands for you is perfect. So it's awesome. And Jeffrey, me, hence the nickname Animal. I love it. Okay, so we've got another scapegoat in the house. Oh, what's with that? It's interesting. And Amy, what book do you recommend on this? I would actually, which book would I recommend for this? I have studied from so many different sources that I would actually not necessarily go towards a book necessarily. Let me get back to you on that, because I've got so many different sources that most of them have come from particular people and articles, but let me see if they've got a book that you can go a little deeper on that. But yeah, mainly for me, it's been a variety of different sources, and particularly from people that I really trust and have been getting amazing results with other human beings. That's who I go for the person. So I'll let you know some details. And hello to Bill, awesome, and Yun. Truth, but really in any group of people, group dynamics. Yes, it can definitely be. So basically our original family relationship dynamics, if we don't transcend those roles, we oftentimes do continue to play out those roles. And that's, like I said earlier, we can often find in a married relationship a hero with a scapegoat, right? Where the hero is putting all the stuff on the scapegoat, and the scapegoat just feels good that the hero wants to be in relationship with them, right? And so there's a lot of that. And so, yeah, that's the reason why we want to identify back from the beginning what have been the patterns, because whatever we learned first tends to be learned best, right? It's the most reinforced. So that's why we want to go back in time, identify the roles in that particular environment, and then see how they're continuously operating out there in the world around us, in our friendship circles, in our business relationships, in our intimate relationships, everywhere, and see the dysfunction that they continue to create, because they isolate the core self from the relationship, right? Because the pattern is in the relationship rather than the person. All right, so love that, Jan. Good to see you, my friend. And yep, Bill, got some dysfunctional families everywhere, right? We're all a part of them. And Jerry, two brothers played higher level hockey, but one level lower, and I was a good player. Yeah, absolutely. And as the scapegoat that you've kind of identified yourself with here, you know, oftentimes a scapegoat can be as good as the hero, but they just don't get the reward or the attention or the praise and the acknowledgement, because the other sibling has already fulfilled the role of the hero, right? And yeah, so it's all interesting how that plays out. And Paveen is here as well. Much love to you. And Laker. Thanks, Vanessa, for this. Oh, I don't know why my screen is not bright at all. Thanks, Vanessa, for this I don't know what that is, that you are reminding me again. My mum and I have always been very aware of our family pattern. So we can do different from Tahiti. That's awesome. I love that you and your mum are, you know, able to build the awareness, right? And to be able to identify your patterns. That's awesome. And a lot of growth available and a lot of depth of connection. And also, you know, I see that as being oftentimes a pathway where we can transcend the child-parent relationship and make it more of an adult-adult relationship as we grow and develop. Now, for some reason, Jose, I cannot open your message. I'm clicking to see more and it won't open for me. Oh my gosh, this is going to be annoying because you always ask such great questions. So let me see what I can see. Good evening, Vanessa from Warsaw, Indiana. Everything you said sort of applies exactly to my son. He's only 14. And then it says since, and I can't click. Do you mind, Jose, posting the second half of your comment? I'm so sorry. For some reason, sometimes Facebook Live does this and it just doesn't work and I can't open your message. And I really want to get to it so I can see your amazing question and your shared experience here. And Linda, I'm going to have the bloody same problem with you, unfortunately. Hi, Vanessa. Great wisdom about families. I am the mascot. My sister has begun to ignore me. Should I ask her why or let it... now I can't see the rest of your message. Could you do the same thing? I'm so sorry, Linda. Post me the second half of your message because Facebook Live isn't letting me click the see more, so I can't open the full message. And I really want to get to both of you guys. And Jan is saying, well said, all the best. I love it. So I haven't gotten you guys commenting anymore. So if, I can't say anything for what you're sharing about your 14-year-old son, Jose and Linda. I'm going to just kind of make up what I think is coming. But you said that you're the mascot and your sister has begun to ignore you. And should you ask her why or let it go maybe? All right. So basically, or let her be. Okay, cool. Thanks, Linda. So I would actually, this is something that I do because we all have needs, right? As human beings, we have a need to understand. We have a need to be acknowledged. We have a need to be understood. We have a need to understand. And so sometimes the people around us can't meet our needs. And that's because of their own inabilities to process their emotions. It's a whole magnitude of reasons that it could be, right? And so what I would say, if I was in your position, Linda, and my sister was ignoring me, which to me is one of the most hurtful things, right? Is passive aggressiveness. Like it's closing down the door. It's there's no opportunity to reestablish connection. I don't do well when people are treating me like that. And so what I've had to do is learn that that's how this other person may deal with it. And I need to be able to fulfill on my own needs instead of getting hurt or really upset or letting it take over my life. And so the process that I would use in your situation, because we can't control her, is because what keeps us stuck is the lack of feeling like we haven't got the connection or the understanding. I would first write out, what's my perspective on this situation? What has happened from my perspective with my sister? What is going on? All right. And what you do is you go through a process, just write it all out. And basically you're giving yourself the gift of being listened to, being heard, and being understood. Once you've done that, now what I would do, it's called the shifting perspectives exercise, right? And basically what I would do from that point, once I've established that need to feel heard, understood, and being really aware of what my perspective is on the situation, I now shift perspectives and stand in my sister's shoes, right? And so I'd go, now not through the eyes of me, but truly through her eyes. What is going on for her? How is she perceiving this situation, right? Why is she potentially ignoring me? What's really going on for her? What hurt, what fear, what pain is underneath that? And basically, if there's anybody else involved that you need to, need to rectify as well, they can be involved. You just shift perspectives until all people involved in it are done. But basically, if it's just you and your sister, do you first, then shift in perspectives to her. Now what you've got is you're no longer needing to have her talk to you or needing to hear what's going on for her or needing her to understand you and not judge you or whatever it is. You've already given yourself what you need. And now you also have a better understanding potentially of what's going on for her. And now you're stepping forward as your adult self. And now it becomes less about you against her, and it becomes about the third entity that is the relationship. And what is going to help this relationship? You've given yourself the understanding. You feel like you're understanding her at a higher level. And now you can communicate from a different place rather than the, hey, you're wrong and you've been ignoring me and, what the hell, which is just going to force her into her defensive position. You can now come with understanding, compassion, curiosity, desire to connect. And basically from this place, I would actually have a good talk to her in a really good strategy of, communicating with the intention expressed at the forefront, which is to reconnect and to understand her and to make sure that by the end of the conversation, you guys are feeling even better and more connected with one another. So if you want more guidance with that, because I could sit here all day and talk you through that, you can definitely reach out to me and I'd be happy to help. But hope that helps, Linda. And just giving yourself that understanding, meeting your own needs so you're not coming into it defensively or needily, and also shifting perspectives to get more compassionate and understanding with what might be coming on for her, and then make the end game the connection of the third entity of the relationship, not you against her, but actually what's healthiest and best and what you envision for the quality of connection you want to experience in that relationship. All right. Jose, thinking how to do a less complicated question. Oh, Jose, maybe when I leave this live, I should be able to access your full question. So I will write back to you, all right, when I get access to the full question. And I so appreciate you sending it through. And I'm sorry that Facebook Live is having a bit of a fit with me right now. So I'll get back to you, Jose. And Linda, thank you so much. You are so welcome, beautiful soul. I'm grateful that that was of help to you. And please do reach out if I can ever support you. And Jose, here we go. Is it possible that this 4 points that you mentioned can be manifested in different situations in one person? It's taught that it's not, but my personal experience and when I do work with other people, I can definitely see that different roles can be played from the same person. All right. So I like to, if you've ever looked at the drama triangle, right? Like, you know that in all of our dynamics in relationship, whenever there's drama, we've always got a victim, we've got a perpetrator, we've got a rescuer. And we may have a core part of that we tend to sit in the most. For me, it's definitely been the rescuer. But basically we can switch and be all of them. I've definitely played the victim. I've definitely played the persecutor. But my natural core role is the rescuer. Now, I believe that this can happen in our family relationships, but it's slightly different. If the role has already been taken and it's a really strong role, you as a child, you won't be taking that role, right? If there's a really strong hero, you're out of the game. You're going to be the scapegoat, or you're going to be the lost child, or you're going to be the mascot. And I feel like the family first needs a hero, then they need a scapegoat, then they need a lost child, then the mascot can come along. But what I have found, and what I personally feel, is that because I can see myself coming in as the mascot, but then when the role of the hero wasn't being played, I took up that position. And it may also be equated to the fact that my two brothers are 6 and 8 years older than me. So I came in later in life and I spent a lot of my childhood, without them in the house, right? So I think when I first came in, I was probably more of the mascot, right? Making everybody happy. And then as my brothers left home, which was, pretty early still, basically I can see a lot of the hero in me. All right. And so I do believe that we can manifest different roles depending on the dynamics and depending on what's missing in those roles. But remember, it's all to hide the dysfunction of the family. So as we can grow and evolve as individuals and ideally as families, but that's not always the case. Those roles take less and less of the lead, and we get to be more operating as more and more of the core self. And that's why in the work that I do, I start with identifying what is your core self, so that you know the difference between the true you and the patterns and the roles and the dysfunctional ways of acting defensively. And so anyway, if you want any help with that, you guys know that you can always reach out to me, and I'd love to help you identify your greatest gifts, what you're here to do in this world, who you really are, and where your talents lie, where your most fulfilled pathway lies, all the rest of it. That's what I do. And also help you notice the difference between the patterns and who you are, so that you can stop, going down the path of dysfunction and lack of fulfillment, and actually get on your pathway to freedom and fulfillment and reach your potential in this lifetime, right? So Jose, you are so welcome. grateful that that was of value. And Edgar's in the house, sending love always from Chihuahua, Mexico. Much love coming back at you, my friend. And I hope those of you who are just joining now, definitely watch the recording of today's message. Identify which of the 4 roles you've played as you've grown up in your dysfunctional family, because we've all come from one. And this will give you such a superpower in your life to know the difference between your role and who you actually are, so you can start living more as your core self. All right, so that's it from me today. My message and reminder, as always, is to go out there and honor your authenticity, deepen your intimacy, and contribute meaningfully and purposefully. And please do share this message if it is of value to you. And I cannot wait to see you guys again soon. And I want to say a massive thank you to each and every one of you guys who could show up live today and contribute to the conversation and ask your amazing questions and share your amazing experiences. You are so appreciated. I love co-creating this space with you, and I couldn't do it without you. So that's it from me today, guys, and I will see you next time.